Joining me here is Matt Canavan, a National Senator. Thanks for your time. What can you tell us out of today's meeting? How would you sum up the feelings of your colleagues?
Well, look, I don't come on here and never do speak on behalf of my colleagues. I'm always pretty upfront with my own views, and the party room's a place where people make their own views heard and can do so in the privacy of that room. I mean, there is no agreement though from the Nationals party room to what we've been presented. There is a desire for a lot more detail here. I think there are a lot of things missing from what we've been told, and in a way, we seem to be being asked to marry a girl that we haven't met. This seems to be an arranged marriage. It was all arranged. Apparently, maybe the PM had discussions with President Biden, and we're all being given a fait accompli. Well, the Nationals party room, I know, is not a rubber stamp. We're not there just to tick things off. We want to make sure we get this right, of course. And our job down here is not to make life easy for people. It's not to make friends. It is to fight and represent the people we represent and make sure people don't lose their job.
Okay, well, what's missing specifically? I assume you're talking about net zero 2050. So specifically what's missing that you'd want to see?
Well, exactly how it's going to work.
Is that possible though for the next 29 years? I mean, exactly how it's going to work?
Well, this is like at the moment, it seems like we are taking on a mortgage and hoping to pay it back by winning the lotto. I mean, this is a radical change, obviously, for our economy to get rid of all fossil fuels. Fossil fuels make everything. All this plastic here in this studio is made from petrochemicals. The masks we all carry around and use come from petrochemicals. And, of course, a lot of our energy, transport and electricity, etc. So radical change. But we're being told there's not going to be any cost and it's all going to just be solved by this mythical hydrogen thing, which doesn't really work at the moment.
Green hydrogen does work at the moment.
Well, not commercially. Not commercially. Yeah, sorry, I should add that. Yes, true, good point. I'm happy to take that's a fair point, that we do make hydrogen now. I meant to say it doesn't commercially stack up, though, for those types of applications. And there's a long way to go to do that. Now, maybe that will work out.
Been good advances in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm all supportive of it. I was very supportive of it when I was Resources Minister. We should invest in it. We should try to do it. But we shouldn't gamble people's livelihoods on something that may not turn out. So that's my concern.
Okay, so just you mentioned, this taking on this mortgage. You seem to view your role as protecting the regions from the economic potential harm of net zero. But there's a cost on the other side. We're looking at what our trading partners could well do with us. We're looking at international money markets as well. That's going to hurt the regions as well. It's not a cost-free exercise, the alternative path.
It seems to me, Tom, though, again, there's a lot of lack of detail on that too. But that's the rhetoric. That's what we hear. But can anyone give me a single example of a project that hasn't been able to get financed because we're not committed to net zero? That's the key thing, right? Because Australia hasn't signed up to net zero, this project didn't go ahead. This project didn't get financed.
The more unified approach to net zero is only just starting.
Hang on, but aren't we jumping at shadows a little bit? I mean, we were all told this, and there's a real-world example here. We were told by the business community last year that if we didn't kowtow to China, it was going to be economic catastrophe. I had many businesses contact me, the Business Council of Australia, who are now jumping at shadows again on the net zero stuff. Last year, they were jumping at the China dragon, saying this is all going to be terrible, they're going to cut off our trade, we're going to be forced back to penury as a country. Guess what? It didn't work out that way, did it? We found other markets, as I was saying that at the time. Yeah. I was saying we'd find other markets, and we did. So, and likewise here, I don't see that.
There's a parallel to this, though. So net zero, this sort of big push is only happening after the recent US change of president. Obviously, that's given this some momentum. But we're clearly seeing shifts around global finance and coal. I mean, it's been very
That's difficult. A different... Yeah, and that is but that's a different question.
But this is one and the same thing. When we're talking about international money markets and how this ultimately affects us, when we talk about Australian government bonds, if we're seen as a laggard, there'll be less demand for them in interest.
But hang on. There's no evidence that our bonds are trading at a lower value.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So there's no evidence yet. Now, on the coal things, though, no one is suggesting that if we sign up to net zero, somehow investment banks are going to come back and finance coal mines. That's not going to happen. So that doesn't deal with that issue. I agree, that's an issue.
Well, no, but it doesn't. An example of where capital
in terms of finding a solution to the woke ESG-driven capital markets at the moment that are destroying the strength of Western economies, as we can see in Europe and the US, because they're not financing oil rigs anymore. Now the US is beholden to Saudi Arabia and Russia for their oil, when 2 years ago they were oil independent. That's a big problem, but signing up to net zero is not going to reactivate that finance.
One thing on coal.
Let's go back to solutions. And in terms of the US here, this ridiculous argument that somehow because President Biden wants us to sign up to net zero, we have to do it. When did we become the 51st state of the US?
Well,
when did that happen?
It's not. I mean, the US.
Well, whether it's Britain, the US, or wherever.
Well, then you start.
As I said last year.
Countries.
Well, hang on. As I said last year, we rightfully rejected China's 14 grievances. Right? China came to us and said, "Hey, you need to do these 14 things that we're not going to trade with you."
This is a bit different.
How, Tom?
Because it's the US, it's the UK, it's the Europe, it's an... Oh, hang on, hear me out. Hear me out, you're saying about an international agreement to do good for the whole world. That was a 14-list grievance, a list of grievances from the country that wanted us to counter.
But hang on. Well, apparently... I'm not accusing the US of doing this, but I do hear apparently the Prime Minister this morning said that we have to do this to protect our security. Now, the implication here is apparently... has the US told us that we won't defend you unless you sign up to net zero? I think that's an important piece of information to know.
Well,
has that been a demand of the US? Because they are our friends, Tom. They are our friends.